in researching a little bit more Paul Coffman, that the game that he shares with his friends is the game against the Washington Redskins on Monday night, 1983. Now, I was 9 years old. I was watching that game. My parents were out. They had whatever function they had. It was a Monday night, right? And I watched that game on their 13-inch black and white TV in their bedroom because my sisters were home and they were watching whatever they were watching. But I stayed up for that whole game. And I could not believe, as a young fan, I remember Paul Coffman from that game. I remember Lynn Dickey, of course, and I remember Mad Dog Douglas. Those are the three things I remember as a kid from that game. But he had mentioned that was his one of his greatest memories playing. What do you remember from that game?
So for me, I didn't see it live. Yeah. So that was the game that I caught up on. Mm-hmm. I think so many things. I mean, you mentioned some of the great names. Gary Ellis had a fantastic game that night. Even Mark Mosley unbelievably missing the field goal. Having been the only kicker to win the MVP award previously. They were the defending Super Bowl champions. So many. It's almost a game. Had the Packers lost it, had Mosley kicked that field goal and the Packers lost what would have been, I guess, 50-48 if it had kicked that field goal, that almost in itself would have been a microcosm of that Packer era. Mm-hmm. Where, with lots of offense, not so much defense, but the defense making the occasional big play. Yeah. Coffman catching all those balls, Dickey throwing it all over the field, Gary Ellis, who was a very underrated player, very, very underrated player. Yeah. Even Mike Mead, I think, made a huge play that night. And of course, Mark Murphy, the Packers president now, was playing for the Redskins.
Playing for the Redskins.
The Washington football team, sorry, that night. So many things. It's great to hear, Mike Douglas's name brought up, because what a super player he was. And again, one of those guys that gets overlooked because he played in that era.
Yeah, we'll do a profile on him because he is so excited. He was so excited.
And you got Douglas and you got John Anderson and those so good players on defense, and of course Douglas and Dickey and Coffman and Greg Cook, all inextricably, if I could get the word out, linked together, because they were all released together by Forrest Gregg in '86, which I'm sure we'll come to. But what a unbelievable game, unbelievable Monday night.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get back. I mean, Paul Coffman was undrafted. The story is that he had a tryout. Actually, Coach John Meyer scouted linebacker Gary Spanny. Right. Coffman asked to keep an eye on him as well. Can you take it from there?
Yeah, no, that's exactly true. And Gary Spanny, who was an All-American at Kansas State. Paul was close to him, and basically there were a number of teams that came in and worked Spanny out. And Coffman basically said every time they come in to work you out, can I join in? Can I be there? Can I get a shot? And it's exactly from that workout. And I heard Paul Coffman saying once that in his workout, Spanny had to throw the passes to him, and that Spanny wasn't the best passer in the world. And he was, Coffman was catching balls up in the second row of the stands and things like that, making diving catches into the stands. But yeah, no, it's exactly the story. And then of course when Meyer went back to Green Bay and they were looking for, in essence, guys to help out in camp, they were trying to fill out the 60th, 70th, 80th, 90th man on the roster. They were short of tight ends, and they went back to Meyer, having worked him out, and called him up, and the rest is history, really. Yeah. It's a great story, and it there's probably in NFL history there's probably quite a few of those types of stories, but it's a wonderful story. And you know, for Coffman then to go on to be a multiple Pro Bowler from that situation is fantastic. And I think that in Packer history, probably only Willie Wood comes close to that kind of story.
Yeah. Paul Coffman's life.
What was
Yeah.
the biggest?
I mean, I think as a player, I think that excellent hands. So good speed, but not great breakaway speed, but excellent hands, excellent route runner, could get open, decent blocker, not a, you wouldn't put him up there as a Mercedes Lewis type blocker, but
he's a body. Yeah, he's a body.
got the job done. But I think I would look at two things: excellent hands, and the ability to get open, find the open space. You know, and he was more than just, you know, the third option guy. You know, after Lofton and Jefferson, he was much more than that. I mean, he was a huge target for Dickey. In fact, I think, although the numbers don't necessarily bear this up, in terms of being a game in, game out target, he was as much a target as Lofton was. Now, Lofton put up huge numbers and all of that, and was, you know, a world-class athlete and Hall of Fame, all of that great stuff. So it's not trying to knock Lofton in any way. Huge Lofton fan, but I think Coffman was just as an integral part of that offense as any of those guys were.
Well, you know, didn't during that point Lofton averaged 20 yards a reception? So I mean, you almost have Paul as the intermediate, right? You know, route receiver there in that scheme.